to those big picture numbers, let's go to our featured guest now. He's Bill Robson, Chief Executive Officer of the CD Howe Institute. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Pleasure to be here. You said it needs a close look, the false statement, and it sure does.
Your take then on the fiscal measures. The government says it's striking the right balance between fiscal responsibility and the need to spend on priorities.
Well, we have to take these numbers seriously. It's kind of like a professional obligation, but I do want to point out that for the upcoming fiscal year, if you go back to the projections that we've had over the last 4 statements, the baseline amount of spending they're projecting for the upcoming fiscal year has gone up by $100 billion. So $25 billion a year of extra baseline spending. Now, some of that's inflation, but the government kind of caused the inflation on its own. So I do want to just start with that great big chunk of salt. What we see and hear in each budget and each statement is kind of like what works in terms of communications at the time. But we've got to be careful about taking this stuff seriously. And you've already observed, the debt ratio to GDP was supposed to be such a hard indicator. Well, it's going up when it was supposed to be going down. And so I'm quite concerned that when we get to the spring budget, we're going to see some deterioration in the numbers. There will be a lot of new spending that wasn't prefigured this time. So I'm quite unhappy with the document. I think we've not been getting the straight story from the federal government for quite a while now. And so we have to pore over these numbers, and there's a lot to say about them. But I think we have to go in with a lot of skepticism because the past projections have just not turned out to be reliable. There's lots more spending that's not prefigured in this, but you can tell there are going to be announcements coming out of the PMO.
What do you think of the lack of a timeline to a balanced budget? Early in the life of this government, they did sketch out a timeline, and since then it's gone out the window.
Well, they don't want that constraint. There's something very special about zero. A lot of economists and other financial analysts will point out reasonably that some of these measures are quite arbitrary, but when you're sitting at the cabinet table and somebody says, I got a great idea to spend $1 on this, there's nothing like that zero bottom line to force the conversation about, okay, so like what aren't you going to spend on or how are we going to finance it with taxes? They don't like that constraint, and so it's out the window again, and I think that's a problem. I think the idea that you can just finance more of this stuff through debt indefinitely if you pose it like that, they'll say, no, that's a bad idea. But when it comes down to actually making the decisions, they don't want that constraint. I think you have to have a balanced budget as a target or you're just going to continue on that treadmill.
The fact is, however, we do have a AAA debt rating. Not all advanced economies do. And the government says that its focus on debt to GDP is a reason for that.
Well, they are coasting on the accomplishments of governments before them. And so, yes, they did leave us in a good fiscal position. A couple of notes about that. We have funded pension plans in this country, which many other countries don't have. And when they're totting up the public sector assets and liabilities, that certainly makes the overall numbers look better. And they are better. But that money's not theirs to spend as they want.
These are public sector pension funds that you're talking about.
Including the federal government's own plan. I mean, they are partly funded plans, so good on them for that. But that money's spoken for. It's not like you can use it to service your other debts. Putting the CPP's assets and the QPP's assets into this same kind of overall measure, yeah, from the point of view of an external observer who's looking maybe at U.S. Social Security and going, that's a nightmare, yeah, it's good. But it's not like that money's the federal government to use. I'm going to make another point, too, because it's a numbers-oriented audience that we've got here. If you look at the deficit numbers for the upcoming year and the year after, 40 billion odd, look at the financing requirement, 110 billion. There's a lot happening that's kind of below the line. They're not doing it on the statement of operations, but a lot of the housing stuff, other things that they're talking about is through these investments in crown corporations. Could be all good, but I think we need to watch that quite carefully because a lot of the action isn't happening where we can see it anymore. And if some of that money turns out to be, well, these are investments by the Canadian Infrastructure Bank or whatever, but that don't pay off, well, then the dividends they're projecting in the future aren't going to come in, like the Bank of Canada is now making losses. And so, in fact, we're going to find the debt's bigger and the debt servicing costs are higher than what they're saying. So the numbers that we're seeing on the bottom line aren't necessarily telling us the whole story. And I think some of the credit rating agencies, they need to look at that because the financing requirement, the deficit didn't used to be as different as they are now. But there's this persistent gap and it's big. It's like $70 billion every year.
Bloomberg says that debt servicing costs are about 10.8% of revenue now, or forecast, excuse me, to be.
I get choked up over this topic too.
and that, they note, violates the informal Dodge rule. David Dodge, the former governor of the Bank of Canada, doesn't think those costs should climb above 10%. Your thoughts there? Debt servicing costs, almost 11% of revenue?
Well, we want to watch that, but the thing that's important to remember, and it sort of ties into what I was just saying, is there's two sides to the balance sheet. There's assets and liabilities. There's also two sides to the income statement. The cost of servicing the debt is what they show in expenses, and that's the one that we've been used to looking at. But there's also investment income. And investment income cratered recently because the Bank of Canada got stuffed with all this government debt that turned out to be, that is now worth less than what they bought it at. And when I look at the numbers, I think increasingly we have to focus on both sides of that, because if the investment income that they're projecting, it's very robust. What if it's not there? Then actually we're going to find that the total cost of servicing the debt is more than what we're saying. So we want to watch that number for debt servicing costs, because that's where the higher bond yields, the higher money market yields are feeding through in terms of expense. But there's something else happening on the other side as well with the investment income and all their federal government's financial assets. We haven't been used to paying attention to that in the past. It's time to start paying more attention to it.
What is the likely impact of higher bond yields and rates on this question of debt servicing costs?
Well, it does crowd out other program spending over time. You can continue to borrow to pay your interest, as people often do. But there are two things to watch here. As I say, there's the what we see on the expense side, and then there's what happens elsewhere on the balance sheet. I'll just emphasize again that we've been watching certain types of indicators. They moved their pension amortization costs kind of below the line in their main presentation. So there's a past liability getting serviced that's not getting measured in those things. And I've said already that we have to watch the investment income, because in the past that was actually quite substantial, didn't vary much, so we didn't pay much attention to it. But now there's a lot happening on that side. So I'm a little concerned that the numbers that we're used to watching aren't the ones that are going to matter so much in the future.
There's no news yet of a national pharmacare program, as the NDP wants. What are your thoughts on the influence of that supply agreement with the NDP on this statement? Well,
that's why I'm concerned that the projections are not going to be reliable again, and that we're going to find that there's a whole lot more announcements. This has not been an unusual thing over the last little while. In the wake of last spring's budget, I think we had an announcement, a multi-billion-dollar announcement from the government, like days after the budget. So there's clearly more to come here, and we, as I say, we have to take these numbers seriously for what they are in terms of the update. But when it comes to the projections, you remember the old Peanuts cartoon where Lucy kept pulling away the football before Charlie Brown could kick it. How many times does this have to happen before we learn?